First thing we want to do is to take a look at the homework assignment that was due last Wednesday. I cannot make anything due during the break, so that's why it was due the day before the break. So we'll take a look at this homework assignment and see if you guys have any questions. Okay. And this is, I'm going to save it to today's folder. Are there any general questions about the homework assignment? I have not taken a look. Well, I think I graded it. Yeah, I graded this yesterday. Not too many people, got major deductions. Some people did not get all the points, but for the majority of the class, did fine with this homework assignment. And I'll just kind of go over that today. It's a really quick one to go over this time. I do want to point out, certain things that can be confusing. I revised my notes also. Okay, if you read my notes, you might want to read it again because I revised it to try to make certain things more clear, or at least point out places where confusion can happen. So let me just go back to my notes first. So this way I can show you what I mean by that. Okay, so let's go to a new tab. Now you can usually tell by the date, so this one, was last updated this morning at about 2 a.m. or so. If you look at the time that you get your grade, that's usually sometime in the a.m., like early a.m. This is the part that I updated a little bit. Basically, I added right here. This is stuff that I added. I try to use the words like the verb and object to relate what we are doing with the trace. In this particular case, we use G12. Okay, if you look at G12, is this cell here. This is my verb. In other words, it tells me what to do. The cell E7 is my object. I'm acting. This is the action. Okay, line 6 looks like this. That's my action. When I perform that action, I'm acting it on the return info cell, which is this particular cell, and this is the result of the action. So I try to add some more stuff to the notes to make it more clear. Which statement are we executing? Which return info cell are we changing? And what is the result of the change? Okay, so those are the three pieces that are really, really important. And then at the very end here, I also added this little chunk of text here to basically remind people, what is important when you trace a program like that. So if you don't get all the points with this homework assignment, this is something that you might want to take a look at to make sure that you do understand what is the purpose of a return statement and how it executes. Some people turn in certain variants of a factorial program. In other words, I look at the trace. Instead of looking like the program that was in the homework assignment, these particular submissions basically gave me recursion based on factorial. So those particular submissions got no points because it is not even close to what the homework assignment is supposed to do. Okay? I can show you exactly what I mean by that. Yep.
Where did you say we find this at? Where out in the...
Updated subroutine notes from Moodle,
All right.
which is something that I have been updating, for some time already. So every time I found, a particular common problem of, okay, this concept is, a little bit tricky to understand, and from the questions that I get in the class, I just add some more, clarifications and some more details to the notes to hopefully try to explain that concept. So, getting back to the homework assignment, let me just go ahead and trace it because, we haven't really seen the solution of this one yet. And it is really important for people to know what it is supposed to be like, especially people who do not get full score for the homework assignment. Okay. We need one column for comments, one column for line number, and that's pretty much all I need initially. The precondition, there's nothing to say, so if someone forget to put a pre here, I probably take out 1 point out of 40, which is not significant at all. Then we start with line 9, because line 9 is the only line outside of the definition of a subroutine. Line 9 is a print statement, but I can't really do the print yet because it's printing the result of an invocation of a subroutine. So what I need to do first is to invoke S1 with 2 as the argument to the parameter n. Okay, can you guys distinguish what is an argument and what is a parameter? In this case, the argument is 2. It is what you use to specify the parameter. The parameter is n, which is defined by the subroutine itself. Is that okay? In other words, the in tray is the parameter. What you put into the in tray is the argument. Is that okay? Because that terminology will carry on to all your future classes. Whether you're using Visual Basic, C, C++, PHP, Java, and so on and so forth, they will use exactly the same terms. So that means I need to know how to return from the subroutine, and I also need to specify what is the parameter n. And let me just bump up the font size just a little bit so it's easier to read. Return info, the entire purpose of column C is to tell me what else do I need to do when the subroutine is done. Okay? So in other words, it is important that you guys know the mechanics of how to do the return, but it is also important to remember exactly why do we need a column for return info or return line number. In this case, is it a return info? Why is it a return info, not a return line number? Because there's a value to return. There are more things to do on line 9 after we return. Okay, very good. So to spell out what else we have to do on that line, we first start with the line number. We will go back to line 9 after the subroutine is done. The print portion is not done, and the invocation itself is replaced by a single question mark because that will be resolved by the time the subroutine is done. Are we doing okay with column C? Okay. N is the parameter. In this case, it is fairly easy to see that we are using a value of 2 to pass to n. So n starts with a value of 2. Is that okay? Once we set up all the columns for the subroutine, we go into the subroutine. The subroutine starts execution on line 3. That's the first line that has any action. And we'll say n equals to 0 is false because n has a value of 2, and so the condition is false. We go to line 6. Line 6 is a return statement. Am I ready to return at this point? No, because this is the first time I'm on line 6 for this particular invocation, which means I don't know what value I'm supposed to return. I don't have a problem with 2 times n because I know what n is. I don't have a problem with subtracting 1 from it because I know exactly what 1 is. But I don't know what is the value of invoke S1 blah blah blah. So that's what I need to do next, is to invoke the statement again. Now this is important too, because I think about 2 submissions basically use the same columns over and over again. Unless you deallocate a column, you cannot reuse a column. In this case, column C is in use, column D is in use, so that means the leftmost column I can use is column E. Okay, that's important because if you reuse the same column over and over again, you would have overwritten information that's already on that column. So in this case, we have to allocate column E as my return info column as I invoke S1 again, and I will use column F to store parameter n. Is that okay so far? Why we have to allocate new columns instead of reusing column C and column D. Now once again, the return info column is here to tell me at the end of the invocation of S1, what else do I need to do on that line? We are on line 6 right now. And that's why when you specify return info, you have to say we're on line 6. The return portion is not done yet. This is the return value of the subroutine, but we still have to perform this operation when we are done, when we come back. Is that okay so far? Now, here there are two things I want to comment on. The first thing is you cannot replace this n with a 2 at this point. Okay? Because potentially this n can be changed. Especially when you pass this n by reference into the subroutine again, then potentially by the time you get back onto line 6, the value of n could have, can change also. Okay? So it is not reasonable, or it is not a convention to replace this n with the value of n. You have to spell it out exactly the way it is on line 6. Now, there's only one submission that used, a literal 2 instead of n in place of, in this place. I did not take out a lot of points, but I did take out some points because that's not how, a programming language works. What do I put here? We put 1 because according to line 6, we pass n minus 1 to n, and n, my current n is column D, which has a value of 2, so the next n that I'm setting up, column F, should have a value of 1. Once I set up these two columns, I can continue execution or I can restart execution of S1 starting on line 3. Line 3, once again, is checking whether n equals to 0. It is false. We go to line 6 again. I'm just going to split the screen so it's easier to see the current context. So once again, I have to set up, once again, we are on line 6, and this is the first time on line 6 in this particular invocation. Yep?
For when you say n equals 0 is false, which n you look at? You look at the n that you're actually working with at the moment?
You're looking at the n that is you're looking at the rightmost n. So in this case, I'm looking at column F. So on line 6, we have to invoke S1 again in order to complete the calculation. So basically, this time if you want to, you can copy and paste and just change the value of n. So we are still going back to line 6 to finish the return statement. And by the time we return, the invocation will be a single value at that point. Then we can compute what is 2 times n minus 1, in addition to that. N is 0 this time because 1 minus 1 is 0. So are we doing okay so far with how the columns are set up? Okay. This is as deep as we go in terms of recursion. And we are going to go back to line 3 to restart execution on line 3, because every time you invoke a subroutine, you basically have to start from the beginning of the subroutine. It's okay, just, That's okay. All right. So we are starting on line 3 again. This is the last time, the last invocation of the subroutine. And we evaluate the condition. This time it is true because n, which is column H, does have a value of 0. Okay, which means we don't have to go to the else branch anymore. We can go to the then branch instead, which is nice because we don't have to invoke S1 anymore. This is the last time we have to do anything. Line 4 is a return statement, and there's no invocation to do anymore, which means we can just go ahead and execute line 4. What do we do when we execute line 4, which